Welcome to Weatherwood Manor, a place the locals treat like a haunted ghost house. Eris, currently going by Daisy, spends her mornings sweeping the porch and watering flowers, looking like the most ordinary, harmless maid you could ever meet. Technically, watering the gardens is the gardener's job, but Weatherwood is down to a skeleton crew of just 3 servants. The master's wallet is notoriously tight, meaning everyone has to pitch in and do a little bit of everything to keep the place standing. Peace never lasts long around here. Right on schedule, an unwanted visitor starts clearing his throat loudly at the front gate to get attention. Eris happily ignores him, keeping her focus firmly on her watering can. The sharp head maid arrives to handle the situation, recognizing the nuisance immediately. Baron Featherdale. She firmly reminds him for the 100th time that Weatherwood Manor is absolutely not for sale. Naturally, the Baron has zero respect for boundaries. He pushes past the gate with his entourage, complaining that the estate looks like a ruined haunted house and demanding to see the new Viscount immediately. He puts on a dramatic show, claiming he deeply misses his dear friend, the former Viscount who was lost in the Magic War 4 years ago. He insists he only wants to check on the new heir out of noble concern. When the Baron asks how long the reclusive new Viscount has been away, Eris casually pipes up from behind her watering pot. She calmly informs him that the master hasn't gone anywhere. He is perfectly fine and very healthy. That casual answer infuriates the Baron. A mere maid daring to address a nobleman so nonchalantly is far more insolence than his bloated pride can handle. In a fit of rage, the Baron reaches out and grabs Eris by the face and collar, barking that she needs to learn her place. Big mistake. Massive mistake. Before anyone can even blink, Eris's instincts kick in. With a single casual flick of her arm, she flattens the Baron right into the stone pavement. The head maid gasps in utter panic, shouting that a maid is supposed to endure. Eris mentally agrees. She really was trying her best to hold back, but her body just reacts automatically to threats. Seeing their boss smashed into the dirt, the Baron's thugs charge in to attack. Eris slips past their guard without breaking a sweat, taking down every single bodyguard in a terrifying blur of motion. With all the intruders knocked out on the floor, Eris dusts off her apron and politely explains that her right hand is just going through a rebellious phase. The head maid looks at her like she has completely lost her mind. The head maid nervously asks if they should bury the intruders behind the shed, but Eris insists that is far too dramatic. Instead, she neatly sits the unconscious goons in polite rows outside the estate gates so they look like peaceful nap takers. Eris thought she handled the situation quietly and politely, but her peaceful life takes an immediate tailspin. It turns out Baron Featherdale woke up and promptly filed charges against her for assault and intimidation, putting her secret monster strength on the brink of being exposed. To understand how someone as terrifyingly powerful as Eris ended up sweeping floors, we have to look back a few days to her job interview. She strolls into the employment agency under the fake name Daisy Fager, looking completely calm and unbothered. The interviewer immediately double checks the resume, asking if she is related to the famous hero of the Magic War, Andret Fager. Eris doesn't even blink, smoothly brushing it off as a common surname while keeping her true identity locked down tight. When asked why she wants to be a maid, Eris gives a straightforward answer: money. But her ideal workplace requirement is much stranger. She specifically asks for an estate so demanding and harsh that an overworked staff member could vanish without anyone noticing. That exact request fits Weatherwood Manor like a glove. The interviewer lights up with pure relief, delighted to hand off a posting at a noble estate with a notoriously brutal workload to someone actively looking for one. There is just one tiny catch before she takes the contract. The agency clerk practically begs her to hold out for at least a week, since every single previous maid ran away in terror almost immediately. When Eris finally arrives at Weatherwood Manor, she quickly sees why the local rumors are so dark. The place looks less like a high-class residence and more like a haunted stronghold, complete with a broken gate bell that nobody answers. After waiting around for an entire hour, Eris gets impatient and shakes the iron gate so hard the metal starts to flex. that finally brings the head maid rushing out, flustered and apologizing for keeping her waiting. The head maid leads her inside while laying out the steep reality of the estate. Because the current Viscount is a complete recluse, the entire staff consists of just 3 people, carrying the workload of 50. She shows Eris to a surprisingly spacious room and leaves her with one absolute non-negotiable rule. Under no circumstances is anyone ever allowed to step foot inside the Viscount's personal bedroom. Once left alone, Eris flops onto the bed and reveals her true motive. She needs to lay low as an unnoticeable maid for 3 years to retrieve specific hidden items, because if her past catches up to her before then, it's game over. Eris jumps right into her new duties, scrubbing floors and hauling heavy gear beside the head maid. The senior staff member is blown away by her unbelievable speed and stamina, unaware that her new hire has monster-level physical strength. When dinner arrives, Eris demolishes 2 entire bowls of soup in seconds flat. The head maid can only watch in horror at her bottomless stomach, wondering what kind of powerhouse she just brought into the dining hall. When asked how a woman with her capabilities ended up taking a humble maid position, flashes of Eris's intense past in the magic war cross her mind. She brushes the memories aside, letting the head maid assume she simply has a private background. Over the next few days, Eris works like a complete force of nature, clearing out fireplaces and carrying loads that would break a normal worker. As far as she's concerned, her plan to lead a quiet, unremarkable maid life is off to a flying start. That peaceful routine doesn't last long. In the middle of the night, while Eris is fast asleep, an uninvited visitor creeps through her window, brandishing a sharp blade, completely unaware that he just picked the absolute worst target on the continent. Just when Eris thinks she can enjoy a peaceful night's sleep, an intruder sneaks into her room and presses a cold blade right against her neck. The masked intruder warns her to stay quiet if she wants to get through the night, clearly having no idea whose bedchamber he just broke into. He demands that she report back on every movement of Viscount Weatherwood, assuming she is just another helpless little servant girl. Little does he know, disrupting Eris's beauty sleep is about the biggest mistake anyone could make on this estate. Before the intruder can finish his dramatic threat, Eris reaches up, grabs him by the neck, and easily hoists him into the air like a rag doll. Her peaceful facade crumbles for a second as her terrifying instincts take over. While choking the intruder, Eris casually pats down his clothes, looking for his guild-issued poison tool. She knows these underworld types keep quick escape options on them, and she snatches it away before he can even think about using it. The intruder is left completely shell-shocked, trembling in horror, as Eris instantly shifts back into an innocent, starry-eyed maid in a nightgown. He realizes in a heartbeat that he is dealing with an absolute monster. Desperate for his safety, the intruder confesses that he was sent by an underground guild solely to monitor the mysterious Viscount. He swears he knows nothing about who hired him, only that it was a standard spy contract. He admits he is actually the third agent sent on this assignment because all the previous maids who spied on the house vanished or quit. Eris realizes that foreign factions have been keeping tabs on Weatherwood Manor for quite some time. The intruder begs for mercy, explaining that failing his contract means he will be hunted down by his own guild anyway. With his leverage entirely gone, he promises to run far away and never return if she spares him. Eris briefly considers whether she should deal with him permanently right then and there to guarantee silence. But disposing of a body would ruin her peaceful morning routine, so she decides to just let the terrified intruder flee into the night. The next morning, Eris stretches peacefully under the sunlight, ready to return to her quiet maid duties. However, her morning tranquility is cut short by a loud commotion ringing out from outside the estate grounds. The head maid informs her that someone unexpected is moving into the vacant neighboring estate. Eris senses a strange aura in the air and immediately gets suspicious about who could be settling in right next door. Making a hilariously blunt excuse to excuse herself, Eris darts down the hallway to get a better look at the new neighbors. She swiftly makes her way up to an upper floor window to scout out the area. Scanning the courtyard, Eris spots a mysterious figure standing among the trees. To her absolute shock, the strikingly handsome blue-haired man instantly senses her gaze and turns to stare directly at her from across the entire estate. Realizing he is no ordinary person, Eris decides it is best not to pry into other people's business. But her hope for a quiet life takes another major hit when that exact blue-haired man shows up right at Weatherwood Manor, introducing himself as their new gardener and chef named Lou. We open with Daisy making a very firm executive decision right off the bat. She tells the head maid that it is time to immediately fire the new guy, only for the head maid to ask if she is somehow talking about firing herself. Daisy points right across the room at the new hire, calling him out as an extraordinarily suspicious character. But the head maid is already completely smitten, pointing out that someone with striking blue hair and handsome features cannot possibly be a bad guy. Daisy takes a long look at him, admitting that his glowing golden eyes and dazzling looks are enough to make anyone's mind go completely blank. But beneath all that sparkling charm, her instincts are screaming that this man is bad news. The mysterious newcomer introduces himself as Lou, proudly announcing that he will be taking over as both the estate's chef and gardener. He flashes a blinding smile, completely shameless in his self-praise about how lucky the estate is to hire someone as gorgeous as him. While the rest of the staff is practically swooning, Daisy remains entirely unimpressed. That feeling only worsens when Lou casually refers to her as nothing more than Miss Maid the Maid. To make matters worse, Daisy knows a secret that the head maid completely missed. The assassin she captured at dawn was standing right next to Lou. On top of that, Lou lives directly across from the estate, making him almost certainly a spy sent to watch Weatherwood Manor. The head maid puts Daisy straight to work scrubbing windows, completely unaware of the threat walking around their estate. Daisy realizes she cannot just report Lou, because revealing how she knows would only get her own identity questioned and fire her from her quiet dream job. It also does not help that the head maid is a total slave to saving money. Lou offered to work for half pay and fix up the gardens at his own expense, which instantly won over the estate's tight budget. Since she cannot rely on official channels, Daisy decides to hold a little private dialogue in the garden. She bursts into the greenhouse to confront Lou directly about who he really is. Lou tries to play it smooth and flirtatious, asking if she wants to get to know him on a deeper level. Daisy shuts that down immediately, warning him to stop playing around and tell her why he has come to this estate. Lou steps uncomfortably close and whispers his true motive. He claims to be a big fan of hers ever since she captured that intruder last night and dumped him right in his house. Before Daisy can react to her cover being blown, Lou pulls the most cowardly move possible by loudly yelling for the head maid, complaining that Miss Maid is slacking off and hitting on him. Daisy can only watch in disbelief as the head maid scolds her, forcing her right back to work. Sometime later, good news finally arrives regarding Baron Featherdale. The greedy noble suddenly dropped all charges, and the official background check on Daisy Faber was quietly tossed out. As Daisy walks outside with Lou, he nonchalantly asks if she was the one who personally finished off the Baron and buried the evidence. Daisy almost loses her mind right on the spot, hushing him so no one overhears such wild accusations in public. Lou smugly suggests that instead of lecturing him, she should be bowing at his feet in eternal servitude for resolving her legal troubles. Daisy immediately grabs him by the collar with a terrifying glint in her eyes, leaving Lou to realize that her rebellious right hand might be about to settle things her way. While Eris is busy trying to live her quiet maid life, higher-ups in the kingdom are already scratching their heads. Baron Featherdale suddenly dropped all charges against Weatherwood Manor after receiving strict orders from the top, leaving investigators utterly baffled as to why a pushy noble surrendered so easily. The secret trail points back to the chaotic aftermath of the Magic War, specifically the legendary survivors of Queen Island. Someone with immense authority pulled the strings from behind the curtain, protecting the quiet little estate without anyone realizing who was truly responsible. Meanwhile, back at the manor, Eris is stuck peeling a mountain of potatoes alongside Lou, the enigmatic blue-haired newcomer. Feeling generous after saving the day, Eris drops a subtle hint that even a street dog knows how to show gratitude when someone helps them out. Lou offers her a sly smile and whispers a mock thank you before casually flipping the script on her. He reminds her that true gratitude usually comes with a steep price, leaving Eris completely baffled since her wallet is as empty as the manor's budget. He smirkly advises her to use her brains alongside her raw muscle next time, so she does not get reckless. Eris can barely hold back her twitching eyebrow at the nerve of this guy, talking down to one of the realm's strongest figures. Before their battle of wits can escalate, the head maid interrupts to ask Lou if he can prepare dinner for the staff. Lou casually accepts, promising to demonstrate a fraction of his true culinary talents to the household. Eris fumes internally, deeply offended that the head maid seems to favor this mysterious newcomer over her. Determined not to be outdone in basic maid duties, she vows to keep a sharp eye on every single move he makes in the kitchen. Lou steps up to the counter and puts on an absolute masterclass, slicing ingredients at lightning speed. Within minutes, a rich and heavenly aroma fills the entire kitchen as he plates up a magnificent homemade stew. He hands Eris a bowl, and the moment she takes a bite, her irritation instantly vanishes into pure culinary bliss. It is easily the most incredible meal she has tasted in years, forcing her to swallow her pride. The head maid is equally enchanted, praising Lou's cooking while gently scolding Eris for being so slow with potato prep. Eris begrudgingly chews her food, furious that she cannot even find a single flaw in his delicious dish to complain about. Curious, Eris asks how someone with his apparent background possesses such elite cooking skills, wondering if he secretly belongs to high nobility. Lou leans in with a smug smirk, openly amused by how deeply she is trying to analyze his past. He playfully dismisses her sharp questioning as vacant ramblings before grabbing his coat and declaring his shift officially over. As he strolls out while mentioning overtime pay, Eris angrily eats his leftover stew, still deeply annoyed by his overwhelming presence. Even as both maids agree that working with Lou is going to be a huge headache, there is no denying that his mysterious air sets him apart from any ordinary household servant. Late that night, Eris paces the dark hallways with a flickering candle, carefully piecing together two distinct theories about who Lou really is. The first option is that he is a shadow operative sent to keep tabs on the reclusive Viscount Weatherwood. But the second, far more dangerous possibility is that he tracked her down specifically because he knows about her monstrous power from the Magic War. Gazing out into the quiet night sky, Eris realizes her peaceful life might be coming to an abrupt end. Eris wakes up in a cold sweat, her sleep broken by sharp memories of a grand war she fought in another life. No matter how hard she tries to embrace her quiet routine as a simple maid, the past has a habit of barging through her dreams. In her nightmare, she relives the catastrophic battle against the great sorcerer Mephisto. High commanders barked orders while devastating magic shattered the battlefield, leaving humanity hanging on the edge of total ruin. The entire kingdom believed their savior was the legendary war hero Andrit Fager, the supreme sword of the Empire who led the charge against darkness. But the history books only got half the story right. In truth, Andrit was Daisy Fager, Eris herself. After her younger brother fell in battle, she used ancient forbidden magic to take his male identity and take his place on the front lines to finish what he started. She successfully took down Mephisto and ended the war, but at a massive price. Mortally wounded, she woke up 4 years later, restored to her original female body, only to discover she has a mere 3 years left to live. Shaking off the heavy memory, Eris realizes brooding over the past won't help her enjoy her peaceful maid life. She needs direct answers about the strange magical forces hovering over Weatherwood Manor, and there's only one person she can ask. She slips out into the quiet night, towards the outbuilding where her captive, silver-haired operative is locked up. Standing before the barricaded door, she casually contemplates whether she should knock politely or simply break the wall down. Before she can test her demolition skills, the silver-haired agent clears his throat and steps into view. He casually greets her, explaining that his master predicted she would show up right around this time. He relays a direct message from his blue-haired master, Lou, who bluntly told his agent to stop wasting time on useless errands and go practice peeling potatoes instead. The agent panics and insists he's just repeating the boss's exact words. Eris looks at him sideways, wondering if he's actually in on the whole scheme. The agent dramatically points out that he stayed locked up out of his own free will, yielding purely because Eris is a terrifying force of nature. He warns her that Lou is backed by incredible guild magic that conceals the entire estate under a high-level illusion spell, one so discreet that even a veteran war hero like Eris didn't notice it immediately. Eris realizes her gut instinct was right all along. Since she hasn't wielded a sword in years, picking an immediate fight with a high-tier spellcaster like Lou without preparation could have turned out extremely dangerous. With mystery surrounding the Weatherwood family and both of them searching for the truth, Eris decides that cooperation is her best route. She offers the Shadow Agent a deal, an official temporary allowance to share information. The agent reluctantly agrees and prepares himself for her ultimate tactical inquiry, only for Eris to lean in with absolute seriousness and ask if he has any professional secrets for getting stubborn stains out of heavy blankets. Eris hangs laundry in the courtyard while pondering her ongoing surveillance of Lou, the estate's suspicious new gardener. Despite keeping a close eye on him, she has not gathered anything concrete, deciding it is time to confront him face to face. She marches right up to Lou, who greets her with his usual effortless calm before noticing the paper in her hand. Lou takes the paper and instantly adopts a sorrowful pose, dramatically declaring that he must decline her love confession because he has already had his fill of admirer heartbreaks. Eris stands there in utter disbelief as she points out that the document is actually a written investigation log detailing all of his suspicious background activity. Lou remains completely unbothered, blaming her detailed observations on pure self-absorption, while picturing himself as the irresistible hero of a romantic fairy tale. Instead of answering her questions, Lou thrusts a pot of dirt into her hands and challenges her to sprout a flower from a seed if she wants to learn his identity. When she pushes back, he offers an alternative fee of 500 gold pieces, an astronomical sum for a lowly maid, forcing Eris to accept the flower challenge out of sheer economic necessity. Lou patronizingly pats her head before leaving, while the head maid watches from afar and smiles warmly, mistakenly assuming a sweet young romance is blossoming between them. Sent into town on a routine errand to buy groceries, Eris decides to temporarily put her investigation into Lou on hold so she can focus on surviving her endless budget cuts. While browsing the market, she notices a fragile old street vendor selling fresh produce on the ground and kindly buys 7 potatoes to support her. Touched by the maid's kindness, the sweet old lady quietly slips an extra potato into Eris's basket before wishing her a lovely day. But before Eris can get far, 2 aggressive men from the local merchant union arrive and physically strike the old vendor for failing to pay their extortion fees. The sight of a helpless elder getting shoved turns Eris's expression ice cold, her delicate maid persona vanishing as a terrifying aura fills the alley. When the thug foolishly lunges at her, Eris effortlessly grabs him and folds him into a pretzel, leaving both bullies utterly traumatized on the cobblestones. The trembling bullies cower in fear, while the old lady explains that these extortionists started as a wartime vigilante group that now preys on small vendors. Gazing at the union's banner, Eris realizes that keeping a peaceful life might require her right hand to clean up a few local pests next. Eris takes a little evening stroll right into the town's most notorious pub, strictly for informational purposes, of course. Naturally, the local toughs don't recognize the terrifying veteran hiding behind a feather duster. Stepping into the shadows like she owns the place, she scopes out the joint for intel on the local relics. It is all very stealthy and professional, assuming professionals usually look like mild-mannered domestic staff. Unfortunately, 2 regulars spot her and immediately recognize the local maid. They decide to corner her in the back room, completely unaware that they are about to make the biggest mistake of their natural lives. The thugs try to act tough and block the exit, But Eris just sighs at the interruption. Her right hand starts twitching again, practically begging for another round of casual violence. With the speed of a striking viper, she delivers a blinding palm strike right to the nearest face. The poor guy goes down hard before he even processes what hit him. The rest of the gang panics and begs for mercy, lifting their hands in total surrender. Eris calmly dusts off her cuffs, wondering if she has time to finish her errands before dinner. Flashbacks remind everyone exactly who she used to be back in the Magic War. Back then, she was saving the entire world from ruin, which makes her current career as a budget-conscious maid deeply funny. Back in the present, she lays down the law regarding protection money and local extortion. If these thugs keep shaking down the merchants, they are going to find out what a real monster looks like. She mentions the shadowy guild known as the Buried Rat, which happens to operate right under everyone's noses. It turns out even shady underground information networks have to deal with her occasional drop-ins. An assassin from the guild tries to flash a token and act threatening, but Eris is entirely unfazed. She simply takes over the operation with the efficiency of a corporate restructuring. Word on the street is that a legendary healing artifact called Dian Chekt's Eye is hidden somewhere in Midwintry. Naturally, every shady character in the region is looking for it. Meanwhile, back at Weatherwood Manor, Eris is busy tending to her gardening duties while pretending she has never heard of ancient magical relics in her life. She is simply an ordinary maid after all. The resident blue-haired eccentric stops by to inspect her work, bringing along a massive tome of continental mysteries and dropping casual comments about her gardening habits. Eris responds with the polite deadpan stare of someone calculating how many floors she has left to scrub. The head maid arrives with her usual checklist of endless chores, reminding everyone that if the sweeping isn't pristine, nobody gets fed. Eris takes her gardening assignments seriously, pondering what to actually name her newly planted seeds. Unfortunately for local infiltrators, breaking into Weatherwood Manor is a terrible career move. Midnight intruders drop in uninvited, and Eris has to deal with them before they ruin the flower beds. With professional efficiency, she casually launches the unwanted visitors out the window, like yesterday's trash. It is a quick routine cleanup, though the head maid is starting to notice a distinct lack of proper paperwork for these sudden departures. The head maid surveys the tied-up spies bundled outside and questions Eris's aggressive greeting methods. Eris simply maintains her innocent expression, hoping her absolute lack of panic doesn't give away her monstrous combat history. Impressed by her survival skills, the head maid leads Eris down the grand hallway for a momentous occasion. After surviving everything the estate has thrown at her, Eris is finally about to meet the elusive master of Weatherwood Manor face to face. Before Eris can go poking around the manor's deepest secrets, the head maid insists on a little bureaucratic formality. It turns out even omnipotent former war heroes have to sign a non-disclosure agreement before joining the staff. Naturally, the oath is sealed with ancient magic that burns an indelible mark straight into the soul. With the paperwork squared away, Eris and the head maid descend into the shadowy depths of the manor. They make their way down dark, stone-paved corridors, holding a single flickering candle to pierce the gloom. The destination is a heavily guarded chamber that supposedly holds the master of the house. Eris steps into the inner sanctum, expecting some brooding nobleman in the dark. Instead, she finds a bizarrely oversized, glowing golden egg resting on a velvet cushion. According to the head maid, this mysterious sphere is none other than Viscount Grey Weatherwood himself. The situation gets even more complicated when the head maid lays out the political landscape. The estate's funds are completely locked up due to a greedy rival family trying to muscle in. They are just waiting for a chance to swoop in while the master is indisposed. Naturally, Eris inspects the giant egg with the detached curiosity of a seasoned chef looking at breakfast. She checks the pulse of the shell, wondering how long until something actually hatches from it. She even contemplates her career options if a massive chicken pops out instead of a viscount. Back in the light of day, Eris tends to the garden while a rogue green sprout breaks through the dirt. She muses over what to name the tiny plant as it begins its slow climb toward the sun. Gardening is peaceful, predictable, and completely lacking in political intrigue. That peace is immediately shattered when a vibrant, blue haired young man wanders over demanding lunch. This is Lou, who casually reveals he has already picked out a very specific name for the potted plant. Eris stares in quiet disbelief as he christens the sprout after himself. Lou leans in with absolute earnestness, asking if Eris plans to hug and kiss his namesake plant. Eris gives him a flat, deadpan stare that communicates volumes about her personal boundary lines. The sheer audacity of the household staff never fails to test her legendary patience. During lunch, Lou keeps up a steady stream of cheeky commentary while Eris grips her spoon with white-knuckled restraint. He even suggests she needs to eat a balanced diet to properly raise him, the metaphorical flower pot. She has to actively remind herself not to launch him into low orbit. Stepping out into the village to run errands, Eris notices festival banners lining the streets. The locals are buzzing with excitement about a grand celebration and the arrival of some very important military figures. It turns out the outside world is determined to intrude on her quiet routine. A newspaper headline drops a massive name that instantly catches Eris off guard. Grand Duke Raphael is making an unexpected appearance. The mention of that familiar, formidable title sends a ripple of tension straight through her otherwise calm demeanor. The past she is trying so hard to run away from might just be catching up. Eris takes a quiet stroll down memory lane, recalling the heavy burdens of the magic war and the old bonds she left behind. It is a rare moment of reflection for someone who works so hard to stay completely off the radar. Down in the village, the local peace festival is in full swing, bringing cheerful crowds and bustling shops. Eris wanders through the stalls, enjoying the lively atmosphere while keeping her monstrous power safely under wraps. Meanwhile, an eager crew of suspicious figures gathers at the local pub, believing they have unlocked the secrets of Weatherwood Manor. They scheme in the shadows, completely unaware that their target is casually buying groceries. The shady mercenaries attempt a stealthy operation inside the Weatherwood estate, only to instantly regret every life choice that led them there. Eris's mysterious butler handles the unwelcome guests with startling efficiency. Back upstairs, Eris unloads her heavy grocery basket after a hard day's work as a humble maid. The head maid drops by for a chat, casually floating the most absurd suggestion imaginable about disguising herself as a man. Eris stares in absolute disbelief as the head maid doubles down on her bizarre tactical theories. It takes every ounce of self-control for Eris to pretend she is just a normal employee rather than a living disaster waiting to happen. Mr. Liu is standing right in Weatherwood Manor with a recipe secret that has the staff completely baffled. Eris watches him with her usual sharp, low-profile skepticism while he casually offers to share. The blue-haired guest leans in with a theatrical grin, teasing that he can keep a secret if the staff can. Eris is not buying a single second of his charming performance. Mr. Liu drops a casual hint about taking an oath, while the head maid and Eris exchange glances over his impossible background. They have counted over 70 suspicious details and stopped bothering. Deciding it is time to prove just who he is, Mr. Liu reaches out and activates a hidden magical mechanism right in front of them. The entire room suddenly lights up with high-tier ancient runes. A massive magical eye symbol blooms in the air, sending the head maid into an absolute panic. Eris simply watches the glowing display with mild professional interest as ancient magic floods the hall. Mr. Liu analyzes the magical tool, revealing that it acts as a wide-range defense trigger for the Weatherwood estate. The head maid is stunned to realize how much protection has been active all along. With the magical mystery of the estate's owner partially unraveled, Eris presses Mr. Liu on his connections to the legendary figures of the past. She asks if he happens to know the infamous Diane Sakes personally. Mr. Liu's reaction gives the game away entirely, confirming his deep ties to forbidden longevity magic. The head maid tries to process the sheer scale of the deception happening under her nose. The conversation shifts to Miss Daisy's future and the desperate need to protect the estate's security through marriage. The head maid frets over the logistics, while Eris listens with quiet calculation. Mr. Liu offers a stunning proposal to step in and solve the problem himself. With a smooth, daring smile, he declares that he shall gladly become the late Viscountess Weatherwood's replacement. The military council is bracing for a brutal campaign, weighing supply lines against heavy troop losses. Grand Duke Raphael looks over the map, knowing every strategic option carries a steep price. Nobody is volunteering to walk into the jaws of the Mapusto region without a solid gamble. Grand Duke Raphael recovers from his injuries, bandaged up and glaring at the ceiling like it personally offended him. He demands to know who thought a surprise attack on his life was a good idea. The answer is simple. Nobody expects the commander to bounce back this fast. Raphael locks eyes with Andres, whose stubborn streak matches his own. Andres flatly refuses to send his men on what he considers a one-way trip to nowhere. Raphael points out that winning this war means taking risks, but Andres refuses to fold. Back at Weatherwood Manor, Eris is keeping her head down and taking care of the estate's endless chores. She mops the floors and trims the hedges, expertly avoiding anything resembling heroic responsibility. If there is a legendary war hero hiding around here, she certainly hopes nobody is looking at her broom. Between dusting relics and checking magical artifacts, Eris ponders the sheer absurdity of divine treasures. She genuinely wishes she had chosen a completely different relic instead of this chaotic nonsense. Still, a quiet life is worth a little bit of indoor sweeping. Suddenly, a blue-haired visitor arrives and drafts Eris into an unexpected outing. She is whisked away to a high-end boutique for a very important errand. Naturally, she approaches this upscale shopping trip with the enthusiasm of someone heading to the dentist. The boutique owner rolls out the red carpet, assuming wealthy nobility has finally graced the shop. Eris looks at the price tags with quiet dread, while her companion tosses money around like confetti. The head maid gave her blessing to spend, but Eris knows bills always come due. A massive shopping list is handed over, covering everything from formal wear to daily pajamas. The tailor nearly faints at the sheer volume of the order and the ridiculously tight 2-week deadline. Eris just stands there wondering how her peaceful maid life turned into a fashion marathon. The tailor's joy turns into absolute stars in the eyes mania as he calculates the massive profit. He assumes these garments are for the reclusive Viscount Weatherwood and his Viscountess. Eris desperately tries to clear up the misunderstanding before things get completely out of hand. Her companion drops a casual bombshell about taking on the role of the Viscountess for the sake of measurements. Eris stares in disbelief as her blue-haired partner casually uses transformation magic to match her size. Apparently, role-playing as Weatherwood nobility is just another Tuesday. Eris watches the magic shift her companion's build, with a mix of awe and deep annoyance. Why use an actual model when you can just shapeshift your way through a clothing fitting? It is an efficient shortcut, but it definitely crosses into ridiculous territory. The tailor gets a front row seat to the magical makeover and loses his mind over their incredible figures. Eris is draped in gorgeous silks while her companion tries on a sharp, tailored coat. The shop staff are entirely convinced they are looking at high society perfection. When the transformation settles, the two of them look like an impossibly glamorous noble couple straight out of a fairy tale. Eris might just want to sweep floors in peace, but right now she is the best-dressed fake noble in the entire kingdom. Eris is out trying to enjoy a peaceful day, but Lou insists on tagging along like an oversized dog. She would much rather be back at the manor cleaning, but instead she is stuck listening to him complain about carrot and stick training methods. Suddenly, reality starts to fracture around them as old battlefield trauma catches up. Eris finds herself pulled straight into a blinding flashback of the brutal magic war she fought so hard to leave behind. The memory hits with terrifying force, dragging her back to the ruined fortresses and endless waves of enemies. The skies burn with magical energy as the front line descends into absolute chaos. Amidst the wreckage, comrades fall and desperation sets in as the forces of Mephisto's legion overwhelm them. It is a grim reminder of why Eris guards her peace so fiercely now. Lou breaks through the vision just in time, snapping her back to the present with his usual ice cream offering. He checks on her with genuine concern, making sure no demons are lurking in the garden. Safe back in the real world, Eris lets out a breath and accepts his slightly melted treat. After all, the only thing dying right now is the ice cream in Lou's hand. Back at Weatherwood Manor, Eris wakes up recovering in her room with Lou keeping watch nearby. She questions whether her recent spells of dizziness are just harsh hallucinations or lingering nightmares. Lou hands her a book while pointing out how much trouble she caused him by collapsing. He teases her about whether she intended to steal Viscount's egg, keeping the mood light despite the lingering tension. Sitting together by the flower garden, Lou presses her on why these sudden episodes keep happening. He points out that she has been carrying heavy baggage ever since the war ended. Refusing to let her brush it off, Lou gently places a hand on her head and tells her to close her eyes for some introspection. He wants her to confront whatever memory she is trying to bury. As her mind drifts inward, the protective layers of her current maid persona begin to crack open. Questions about her true identity bubble to the surface, threatening the quiet life she built. The crystal fragments of her memory shatter completely, revealing the terrifying truth of who she used to be. Long before she was just Daisy Fagger the maid, she was a terrifying force of nature in the war. Eris reflects on her double life as a humble maid, wondering if she truly feels any genuine affection for the name Daisy. Despite the quiet routine of dusting and scrubbing, old memories from the Magic War still linger in her mind. She questions whether adopting a simple alias was just a way to escape her past rather than truly embrace a new life. Yet as she tends to the plants in the manor, the name feels right at home. Her inner power pulses, a vast and cosmic energy that dwarfs ordinary mortals. She recognizes the profound strength hidden beneath her frail human shell. Blue-haired visitor notices the extraordinary aura clinging to her, immediately recognizing the signs of someone touching upon semi-divine states. He marvels at how a former swordwoman ended up dusting a manor. He teases her endlessly about her disguise, finding great amusement in her attempts to act like a regular maid. She quickly shuts down his teasing with a sharp glare to protect her precious peace and quiet. The head maid arrives to enforce the rules, threatening pay cuts for any slacking off during the day. Eris instantly pivots back to her dutiful employee routine, terrified of losing her hard-earned wages. Magic transformation spells are applied to give her a stunning, aristocratic makeover for an upcoming plan. Eris looks entirely transformed, stepping into a role far removed from her bucket and mop. The head maid checks over the final presentation, offering a warning about the bold performance ahead. Eris remains unimpressed by the dramatics, treating the whole noble charade like another tedious shift at work. A striking red-haired woman enters the scene, carrying an air of absolute authority and danger. She immediately starts sizing up the room and testing the boundaries of everyone present. The newcomer exchanges sharp words and playful warnings, establishing a tense dynamic with the staff. Eris watches quietly, hoping this new complication will not ruin her peaceful lifestyle. It turns out the identity belongs to Mauriane Serenil, the third daughter from a Northern Continental Union church. The elaborate disguise was carefully constructed to secure the Weatherwoods' position. With the arrangements finalized, the carriage prepares to depart for their mission. The head maid entrusts the family's future to them, while Eris simply wants the whole ordeal to wrap up quickly. Chapter 16 opens with Eris and Lou on the move, stepping out of a carriage and heading straight into high society. Lou looks ready to panic while Eris maintains that breezy, unbothered composure of someone who would rather be weeding a garden. A quick flashback reminds us just how absurdly powerful Eris actually is, and why she spends her days pretending to be a humble maid. Her soul was once fractured by overwhelming magic, leaving her with the kind of cosmic burden that makes ordinary mortals vaporize just by looking at it. Back in the past, we catch a glimpse of high-ranking royalty chatting about crowns, weddings, and grand imperial ceremonies. It is all very shiny and important, which naturally means Eris wants absolutely nothing to do with it. Fast forward to the present day, where Lou is trying to process the sheer exhaustion of masquerading as a noble lord. The poor guy is sweating bullets trying to act like a proper viscount, while Eris critiques his posture from the sidelines. They arrive at the grand banquet hall via an airship, greeted by wide-eyed onlookers, whispering about the mysterious Weatherwood arrival. Nobody quite knows what to make of the reclusive lord and his remarkably calm companion. Lou enters the ballroom, arm in arm with Eris, drawing instant attention from the upper crust of society. Naturally, Lou forgot to review his briefing notes, leaving Eris to mentally facepalm at his utter lack of preparation. Things get complicated immediately when Count Rosebell approaches them, recognizing the Weatherwood family name instantly. He looks back fondly on his days serving alongside the late Viscount in the brutal Magic War. Eris introduces herself smoothly as Moriane Serenu, deflecting any suspicious inquiries with a dazzling smile. The veterans of the Allied forces nod in respectful recognition, completely unaware they are standing next to a living legend. Count Rosebell recalls just how famously strict the late Weatherwood patriarch used to be about military discipline and brutal daily routines. It turns out the old Weatherwood estate was basically an elite boot camp disguised as a noble house. After surviving the harrowing social gauntlet of introductions, Lou and Eris finally slip away to a private room. Lou collapses face first onto the luxurious bed, utterly drained by the sheer terror of pretending to be important. Eris pours herself a calm cup of tea, muttering about how a maid's life is just an endless cycle of exhaustion. She settles down to enjoy a peaceful nap while the rest of the mansion bustles with banquet noise. Morning light filters through the grand chamber as Lou slowly blinks awake from his heavy slumber. He sits up, rubs his eyes, and finds Eris already right beside him in bed, bringing this chaotic social outing to a startling close. Eris wakes up to her usual dramatic flair, immediately testing the boundaries of marital banter with her husband. She teases him about his sleeping habits while keeping up her cheerful facade. The morning routine continues with a quick check of the daily schedule, blending aristocratic duties with their peculiar domestic arrangement. Eris handles the paperwork while her husband observes. They head out together for some social mingling, but Eris notes that the suspicious attention from hidden assassins has suddenly stopped. It turns out announcing their presence at the council worked wonders. Before parting ways for the day, they share a polite farewell as Eris heads off on her own mysterious errands. Her husband watches her go, still occasionally startled by her unpredictable antics. Arriving at the venue, her husband is quickly cornered by overly eager young nobles trying to make friends. They boast about their wealthy fathers, completely unaware of who they are talking to. The conversation shifts as the crowd turns their attention to a massive upcoming event, the Berkeley Grayton succession battle. Everyone gathers around to watch the legendary swordsman in action. Enter Zin Berkeley Grayton, a silver-haired prodigy with terrifying sword skills and a reputation as a total genius. The arena falls silent as Zin steps forward to face a formidable opponent. Zin's blade moves with blinding speed, overwhelming the challenger and proving that all the rumors about this sword demon are entirely true. The spectators can barely process the sheer power on display. It turns out Zin is actually the head of a former assassination guild, operating right under the council's nose. The stakes instantly shoot through the roof as secret deals and relics are brought into play. Zin's sword practically starts talking back to the bewildered onlookers, displaying an uncanny, supernatural bond between wielder and blade. The combat escalates into a dazzling display of high-speed clashes. With one final, decisive strike, Zin floors the opponent and leaves the entire audience stunned into absolute silence. The sheer intensity of the match shakes everyone present to their core. Having finished the bout, Zin strides through the crowd and approaches Eris's husband directly with a shocking request. Zin wants a moment of his time, setting up a very messy entanglement for the Weatherwood estate. Gray Weatherwood finds himself cornered by overly enthusiastic nobles trying to set him up. They chatter endlessly about marriage prospects, while Gray tries his absolute best to look like a polite, harmless wallflower. The noblemen keep pushing their matchmaking agenda, but Gray expertly deflects every single remark with smooth, diplomatic indifference. He isn't looking for a duchess. He's looking for a way to exit this conversation entirely. Mention of Zin comes up, a formidable woman famous for caring strictly about her sword rather than high society gossip. Gray listens closely, recognizing a kindred spirit who values peace and quiet over romantic nonsense. Suspicion lingers in the air as the nobles try to dissect Gray's hidden motives. Little do they know, the master of Weatherwood Manor just wants to play cards and drink tea in absolute solitude. Instead of playing high-stakes politics, Gray spends his downtime playing card games with Eris in the cabin. She might be a wonderfully ordinary maid on paper, but she is also an unbeatable companion at the table. Gray has been quietly gathering intelligence behind the scenes, connecting the dots on aristocratic lineages and hidden connections. He knows far more about the realm than his sleepy country estate lets on. The web of secrets points toward ancient relics and powerful figures operating in the shadows. Gray pieces together the clues while maintaining his carefully crafted persona as an unremarkable recluse. Returning to the social gathering, Gray joins a high stakes card game where the nobles eagerly place their bets. Everyone assumes they have the measure of Weatherwood's quiet master. Gray casually lays down his hand, navigating the complex social hierarchy of the Empire through a simple game of cards. Factions, bloodlines, and unspoken loyalties all hang in the balance around the table. The atmosphere shifts instantly as a formidable new presence steps into the room. A striking, red-haired Duke arrives, locking eyes with Gray and changing the entire dynamic of the evening. Duke G. Hark Berkeley Gray steps forward, greeting Gray with intense familiarity. The casual card game suddenly turns into a reunion of absolute heavyweights from the historic Magic War. As Duke Berkeley Gray addresses him as a true comrade from the battlefield, Gray realizes his quiet life is about to get significantly more complicated. The Sword Saint has arrived, and old wartime bonds cannot be hidden forever. The Sword Saint Gehark Berkeley Grayton has arrived at Weatherwood Manor, and everyone is treating it like a royal summit. He sizes up the current Viscount Weatherwood with the practiced eye of a man who cuts mountains in half for a living. Naturally, our reclusive master handles the legendary warrior with casual, unbothered diplomacy. Turns out the Sword Saint isn't just dropping by for tea and biscuits. He has a very specific request regarding his headstrong daughter Zin, who fancies herself quite the fighter. He wants a private mock duel, hoping a little humility from a noble peer will straighten her out. Viscount Weatherwood accepts the challenge, but sets strict conditions to protect Zin's precious pride. It has to be totally private, with zero spectators, because a public thrashing of the Sword Saint's daughter would cause a minor diplomatic incident. Out on the training grounds, Zin glares at the Viscount like she wants to banish him to another dimension. She assumes this reclusive noble is all talk and soft hands, completely unaware of the absolute monster standing across from her. The duel begins and Zin charges in with blinding speed, expecting an easy victory. Instead, the Viscount effortlessly parries every strike without even drawing a proper blade, turning a lethal assault into an absolute masterclass in humiliation. In a matter of seconds, Zin finds herself flat on her back staring at the sky, utterly defeated by a man holding a makeshift stick. The Viscount offers a polite reminder about wrist safety, casually shattering her entire worldview in the process. Shocked and humbled, Zin realizes the vast, unbridgeable chasm in their power. She immediately pivots from wanting to fight him to begging to become his disciple, completely throwing away her pride for a chance at true greatness. The conversation picks up right where things left off, with characters trying to untangle the sheer mess of magic and deception unfolding around them. Nobody expected to find themselves knee-deep in such elaborate schemes while trying to keep things peaceful. Eyebrows raise as accusations fly across the room about hidden identities and forbidden transformations. It turns out that keeping secrets is a full-time job when everyone around you has an agenda of their own. The tension spikes as a blue-haired figure reacts with sharp irritation, reminding everyone that rules and transformations go hand in hand. If you are going to use complex magic, you had better be prepared for the fallout. Intricate magical circles flare up to explain the rigid mechanics of transformed states. The rules are clear. You cannot simply juggle multiple types of magic without paying a heavy structural price. Pieces fall into place as the deduction points straight toward an attempted trap. Someone engineered this entire situation to force a specific reaction, turning an ordinary day into a tactical nightmare. More magical displays illuminate the room, raising uncomfortable questions about mind control and external manipulation. Someone has been pulling strings behind the scenes for a long time. Amidst the flashing lights and flying accusations, Eris maintains her composure, observing the chaos with the detached patience of someone who has seen it all before. Her main concern remains keeping her quiet life intact. The interrogation zeroes in on the true objectives of these unwanted guests. It turns out the noble council has been keeping a very close eye on the Weatherwood household. Counting heads reveals that the surveillance operation involves multiple operatives scattered around the area. The web of intrigue is wider than anyone initially suspected. The questioning presses further, dragging out confessions about terror preparations and covert agendas. The visitors are finding out that poking around Weatherwood Manor comes with unexpected professional hazards. Shifting scenes bring us to a starkly different encounter, where a red haired swordsman stands defeated before his superior. The stark white and blue surroundings emphasize the absolute gravity of the moment. Accepting total defeat, the swordsman steps down from his position as heir without making excuses. A sharp blade is drawn and inspected, setting up a heavy test of loyalty and family duty. The interrogation continues with icy precision, probing into sword techniques and past engagements. Every gesture is analyzed to uncover hidden truths about the household's defenses. Conversations turn toward the master of the house and the curious gaps in everyone's knowledge. Even after a thorough assessment, the elusive nature of the Weatherwood family keeps everyone guessing. As the grand scheme ticks closer to its final phase, the clock literally counts down above a massive, glittering landscape. The stage is set for a major confrontation, and all pieces are falling into place. At the scenic Irigel Villa, things start off at a rather peaceful pace. Well, peaceful until someone refuses to get out of bed anyway. Lou is currently grappling with some intense internal panic. He tries to convince our red haired protagonist to just rest while he handles things. Naturally, pushing through sheer exhaustion always ends wonderfully. Lou points out that nightmares and hallucinations tend to follow when you ignore your body's limits. Tempers flare as the transformation magic gets a bit unstable. A few harsh words later, they are practically wrestling on the sheets. After a dramatic tumble, they pause to catch their breath. The token of marriage comes into play, proving that negotiations here are never entirely straightforward. Lou tries to make a compelling argument about holding on to the ring. He is met with the kind of stubborn resistance only an experienced operative can muster. Giving in with a heavy sigh, the argument concludes for now. There are far more pressing matters to deal with than a stubborn partner. Suddenly, a chilling shift takes over the atmosphere. A heavy, watery darkness descends, plunging the surroundings into an uncanny silence. It turns out to be a mental magic trap left over from the old magic war. These sneaky spells are specifically designed to disrupt allied forces through terrifying hallucinations. Fortunately, the bedroom seems to be just outside the primary trap's range. That leaves a golden opportunity to step in and rescue anyone currently trapped inside. Time for some quick tactical planning. Weighing the options between appearing as Viscount Weatherwood or as Daisy requires calculating the exact risk of getting fired. With the disguise decided, the transformation is locked in. There is zero risk of getting caught by the Sword Saint if the right persona is chosen. Stepping through the barrier, the oppressive mental wave hits immediately. It is an old, unpleasant sensation, but one she is entirely prepared to handle. Voices echo through the dark illusion, crying out for help against the terror. But whoever set up this little trap is about to find out they picked the wrong maid to mess with. Mental traps in this world have a very specific design, usually built around projecting parental pressures onto your own psyche. If you let them get inside your head, you end up trapped in a vegetative state while your brain sorts through guilt trips. Fortunately, Eris is right there to offer some practical, if slightly aggressive, assistance. Rather than letting the illusion drag things out, Eris decides a sharp wake-up call is in order. She delivers a resounding physical correction straight to the source of the mental pressure. It turns out that a direct hit from an annoyed maid does wonders for breaking concentration. Recovering from the shock, the target tries to figure out what just happened to their personal space. Eris maintains her usual utterly unimpressed expression while standing over the bewildered noble. It is safe to say she does not look like the traditional comforting figure they were expecting. These mental spaces generally feature an exit designed to look like whatever the trapped person finds most comforting. For some, it is a glowing doorway leading away from familial expectations. For others, it is tied to memories of safety and early childhood warmth. The backstory here involves a mountain of pressure regarding political marriages and social expectations. Every single friend of the family seems to have tried using everyone else as a political scapegoat. It is a wonder anyone in high society manages to have a moment of peace. The sheer exhaustion of constantly turning down arranged meetings eventually reached a breaking point. With a fierce hound of a pursuer nipping at every step, finding actual freedom felt nearly impossible. That is, until the cycle of pressure finally met someone entirely uninterested in playing along. Back in the present mental landscape, anxiety threatens to cause a complete psychological collapse if things are pushed too far. Eris has to carefully balance giving advice with not breaking the fragile psyche standing right beside her. After all, nobody wants a meltdown inside a manufactured illusion. Consulting with other knowledgeable figures reveals that dealing with these stubborn mental traps requires a fair bit of unconventional thinking. Whether the method is crazy or not, as long as it works, nobody is going to argue with the results. Even high-ranking nobles have to admit Eris has a knack for handling tricky situations. Attention turns toward a powerful relic associated with Diane Checked, rumored to hold miraculous healing properties. Various influential parties across the continent are actively searching for it to cure incurable diseases. Naturally, whenever holy relics get involved, complicated politics are never far behind. Memories of past trials surface as the characters navigate the swirling remnants of old emotional trauma. Panic and self-preservation often bring out the absolute worst in people during a crisis. Eris watches it all with the detached curiosity of someone reading a very predictable novel. The search for the relic connects deeply with personal fears of illness and terminal decline. Finding a cure becomes an obsession for those desperate to escape their fate. Eris analyzes the situation, wondering why everyone makes life so unnecessarily dramatic. Reflecting on her own journey through these strange mental layers, Eris notes that her personal exit has always been a quiet affair. Unlike the others who panic, she treats getting trapped like a minor inconvenience on her way to a day off. Still, every now and then, past memories refuse to stay neatly tucked away. Comrades from past battles echo through the fractured consciousness, bringing up old ghosts and lingering guilt. Eris faces the sudden influx of hostility with a raised eyebrow and absolute zero patience. When a memory tries to start a fight, it is bound to regret picking the wrong maid. Eris finds herself caught in an unexpected moment with Lou, staring in disbelief as he checks on her after her sudden faint. She tries to maintain her usual cool maid persona, but Lou is entirely too close for comfort. The conversation turns sharply toward Eris's supposed weaknesses and her grand philosophy of survival. She reflects on the bizarre concept of having an exit in life, wondering why she always defaults to saving people instead of running away. She realizes that her entire worldview has been warped by a sense of responsibility she never actually wanted. Being the strongest person in the room is a terrible burden when all you want is to sweep floors in peace. Lou watches her internal crisis with a mixture of amusement and genuine care, pointing out her ridiculous habit of overworking herself for the sake of others. He presses her to admit that she is just as fragile as anyone else. Eris mentally contemplates just giving up entirely and letting her dramatic instincts take over. Lou, however, refuses to let her off the hook, declaring himself her savior with an expression of supreme confidence. The banter escalates as Lou insists that relying on him is a perfectly valid strategy for survival. He compares her current status to a fragile potted plant, much to Eris's utter bewilderment. Cornered by his relentless logic, Eris has no choice but to concede that having someone around who understands her inner turmoil is strangely comforting. She accepts his unorthodox life lesson with a gracious nod. Later, Eris wakes up back in her room, fully recovered from her dramatic fainting spell. She immediately gets back to the business of maintaining her quiet routine while Lou enjoys a peaceful moment of reading nearby. Their peaceful morning is abruptly interrupted when a massive airship descends upon Weatherwood Manor. The arrival of uninvited guests shatters the calm atmosphere in an instant. Eris peers out the window to survey the sudden influx of high society visitors swarming the estate. It seems the outside world has decided to crash her peaceful retirement once again. Nobles flood the manor, panic-stricken, proclaiming that Weatherwood is the safest place in the kingdom after a sudden attack. Eris watches the chaos unfold with a deeply exhausted expression. Just as Eris tries to figure out how to handle the sudden crowd, the whispers escalate into shock. The Alliance's greatest hero has personally stepped foot onto the estate grounds. Eris finds herself walking calmly into the halls of Weatherwood Manor alongside her companions. While everyone else is bracing themselves for a storm, Eris feels surprisingly at ease. After all, it is hard to panic when you are secretly the strongest person on the continent. The local rumors claim the new Viscount is a reclusive ghost, but Eris knows better. They are just dealing with a man whose schedule is tied up in post-war paperwork and dramatic duels. Still, standing right here makes her heart race just a little bit. Eris reflects on the master of the house, who is apparently strong enough to handle himself just fine. As a loyal servant, she really shouldn't worry about his well-being. Yet old habits die hard when you used to fight side by side in historical conflicts. Suddenly, a golden-haired lord appears in a burst of sparkling dramatic flair. Raphael Zanael Pen Lota steps forward, and Eris immediately recognizes him. The grand reunion is off to an intensely glowing start. Raphael locks eyes with Eris, and his legendary composure completely shatters. Countless questions start swirling in his head as he stares at his supposed maid. He looks like he has just seen a ghost from a war he thought was long behind them. Memories of the past flash before Raphael's eyes, reminding him of old bonds and dramatic promises. Showing up 4 years later as a humble servant feels like a practical joke played by the universe. Eris just wants to sweep her floors in peace, but fate keeps dragging her back into the spotlight. Raphael's expression darkens as he processes the sheer audacity of Eris's disguise. He looks ready to interrogate her right on the spot about why she pretended to vanish. Eris calmly maintains her best blank maid expression, praying he plays along. Sensing the tension, Raphael sweeps in closer to address the group with aristocratic authority. He makes it very clear that he dislikes anyone causing a disturbance near his estate. His intense gaze practically demands that everyone behave themselves. Raphael cuts through the conversational clutter with sharp precision, demanding to know who dares interrupt his presence. Eris watches him go through his dramatic routine with the dry patience of someone working retail. It takes everything she has not to roll her eyes. Deciding to take control of the situation, Raphael formally introduces himself to the room. He explains his glorious background as the security commander for the Southern Archipelago. Eris listens quietly, hoping his speech wraps up before she has to dust the mantelpiece. Raphael's mind races back to the aftermath of the war and the strict monitoring of survivors. He knows the true identity of the legendary figure who once stood beside him on Queen Island. Looking at Eris now, he realizes she is still playing the ultimate long game. Eris tries to blend into the wallpaper, convinced that her cover story is airtight. She has already gone through all the necessary investigations under a fake name, after all. There is simply no way he could connect her back to the Southern Archipelago. Raphael suddenly zeroes in on Eris with an expression that spells absolute trouble. He addresses the startled nobility and points straight at the quiet domestic worker standing before them. The secret is out, and Eris's peaceful maid lifestyle is hanging by a very thin thread. Here is Eris, standing in front of high society as a humble maid, while everyone around her treats a Grand Duke's presence like a casual Tuesday. She would rather be anywhere else, preferably polishing a silver spoon until her reflection stops looking back. The local nobles are trying every political trick in the book to corner Weatherwood Manor. Eris watches the chess pieces move with the profound weariness of someone who knows she could end this conversation with a single sneeze. Behind that polite, obedient maid exterior, Eris is calculating the exact distance to her cleaning supplies. If they keep pressing her about ancient relics and secret investigations, her right hand might just stage another unauthorized rebellion. The negotiations get wonderfully messy as political factions start passing the blame around like a hot potato. Eris simply shifts the bureaucratic burden right back onto them, masterfully weaponizing red tape like a true professional. Enter Lady Zin, sweeping in with all the dramatic flair of a villain who rehearsed her entrance in the mirror 3 times. She expects Eris to cower, but Eris is mostly just annoyed about missing her afternoon dusting schedule. Instead of taking the fall herself, Eris smoothly redirects the investigation toward her supposedly clumsy husband. It is a brilliant little trap that keeps the focus entirely off her own world-shattering combat abilities. The nobles start connecting the dots about duels, swordsmanship, and potential discipleships. They view Eris as a clever piece on their board, completely oblivious to the fact that she is the personification of a natural disaster. Lady Zin tries to claim Eris as her disciple, completely missing the cosmic irony of the situation. Eris plays along with a deadpan expression, collecting another layer of plausible deniability to keep her peaceful life intact. In Eris's mind, this arrangement is a masterclass in multitasking. She keeps the snooping nobles distracted while securing her position as the estate's most overlooked worker. Two birds, one stone, zero effort. Just when the social gathering reaches peak absurdity, the sky outside starts acting up in a very dramatic fashion. An unidentified flying object makes its presence known, sending ripples of pure confusion through the courtyard. The nobles scramble to find out who owns the sudden airship floating above them. Eris glances up, quietly recognizing the unmistakable arrival of her own chaotic followers crashing the party. With the skies occupied and the nobles thoroughly bamboozled, Eris decides she has had quite enough fresh air for one day. She turns her back on the chaos, ready to retreat to the quiet comfort of her broom and a hot cup of tea. But the peace is shattered at the very last second when the mysterious master of the airship makes his dramatic, barefooted entrance. Eris watches him descend with the ultimate look of exhaustion, realizing her quiet life is about to get a whole lot louder. As the dust settles on Weatherwood Manor, the powerful elite start putting pieces together that were never meant to fit. Raphael and his red-haired companion begin dissecting every scrap of intel on the mysterious household. Raphael reflects on the legendary Zin and the terrifying sword demons of the past. Comparisons start flying around the room about who could possibly match such monstrous skill. Then someone points out a ridiculous, highly specific detail about the unassuming maid Eris. Apparently, her left hand moves with the terrifying precision of a long-trained swordsman. Raphael immediately tries to laugh off the sheer absurdity of the thought. Comparing a humble, dusty estate maid to a legendary warrior is clearly a massive delusion. Except the puzzle pieces keep clicking together in the worst possible way. Raphael realizes the maid's background traces right back to the exact southern archipelago he has been investigating. His investigators pull up employment agency files and old registry documents. They uncover the name Daisy Fager, complete with a hometown and a supposed younger brother. Witnesses remember a rustic beauty with a charming presence who somehow left a lasting impression everywhere she went. Naturally, nobody suspected the quiet helper of hiding continent-shattering power. Raphael orders a full investigation team dispatched straight to Queen Island to get to the bottom of this. He refuses to leave any stone unturned in this wild goose chase. When an airship arrives at Weatherwood Manor, Eris is expecting another quiet afternoon of chores. Instead, a rather dramatic procession of cultists starts chanting praises to someone named Kalefa. The doors swing open to reveal a ridiculously wealthy interior, and a blue-haired man who is apparently the center of this entire fanatical operation. Eris immediately calculates how much extra dusting this will require. Lou, as he is called, promptly makes himself comfortable by lounging around half-dressed in a bed. Eris stares at him with the profound exhaustion of an employee whose shift should have ended 10 minutes ago. Lou decides to test her patience by throwing around nicknames like me, sending Eris straight into internal panic mode. She desperately tries to suppress the urge to launch him back out the window. When the man starts laughing at her visible distress, Eris resorts to her favorite coping mechanism, claiming self-defense while casually flinging a cushion at his head with terrifying precision. Lou finds her boiling rage utterly fascinating, reading her expressions like a book. Eris, meanwhile, reminds herself that committing crimes on company property creates too much paperwork. Standing over her uninvited guest, Eris makes it perfectly clear that she despises having a half-naked man looming over her estate. Lou just grins, entirely unfazed by her dangerous aura. Taking a moment to appreciate the garden's ecosystem, Eris tries to regain her inner peace. Unfortunately, Lou is too loud a distraction for her frayed nerves. Hoping to shut him down with a simple query, she asks a basic question, only to immediately regret opening negotiations. Lou loves playing games with someone who could theoretically crush a boulder with her bare hands. When she finally asks his age, Lou casually drops the bombshell that he is nearly 2 centuries old. Eris processes this ancient piece of information with the deadpan stare of a seasoned professional. Realizing she is talking to a literal historical artifact, Eris fires back with a sharp remark about his seniority. The ancient powerhouse just laughs it off, leaving our poor maid wondering how much longer she has to endure this weird visitor. Morning breaks over Weatherwood Manor, and Eris is already hard at work making sure every single floorboard sparkles. She sweeps the stairs meticulously, ensuring not a single speck of dust remains to offend her delicate sensibilities. The head maid oversees the endless chores, noting that despite all the cleaning, there is still a mountain of laundry waiting. Eris sighs, reminded that playing the humble servant comes with a truly punishing amount of manual labor. Back in the manor, the conversation turns to recent high society gossip and the heavy burdens of the noble council. Eris reflects on how much has happened behind the scenes, far away from her peaceful mop and bucket. The head maid interrogates Eris about her mysterious acquaintance, Lou, and his suspiciously deep pockets. Eris tries to play dumb, hoping her boss won't dig too deeply into where all their sudden financial backing is coming from. They ponder the mystery of the manor's endless funds and whether they should ask Lou for a bonus. Eris looks less than thrilled at the prospect of drawing any more attention to their benefactor. Determined to get some answers, Eris volunteers to head out and speak with Lou directly. She grabs the laundry and heads out into the courtyard, ready to interrogate her blue-haired acquaintance. Eris confronts Lou about his identity, noting that his immense wealth and mysterious habits go far beyond normal imagination. She admits that while he seems harmless enough, his lack of a clear background makes him inherently suspicious. The head maid shares her own concerns, pointing out that Lou has never technically lied, but his selective honesty is its own kind of red flag. Eris agrees to keep a close eye on him for the time being. The conversation shifts to historical geography as the head maid quizzes Eris on the meaning of Kalepna and the northern sects. Eris listens with the practiced patience of an employee enduring a mandatory training seminar. A dark history is uncovered regarding the Northern Logway Church and the terrible things left behind in their basement. Eris recalls those crazy fanatics with a grimace, remembering why the Southern Church had to be completely dealt with. Eris casually drops a terrifying revelation. She was the one who burned down every single one of those corrupt churches herself. The absolute casualness of her confession leaves anyone listening completely speechless. Right in the middle of this intense history lesson, Lou abruptly appears out of nowhere, right beside them. Eris jumps in shock, demanding to know how he managed to sneak up on her like a magical phantom. Lou flashes a knowing grin and asks Eris if she has anything else to say about Logwy. She glares right back at him, realizing that keeping her terrifying past a secret around this guy is going to be nearly impossible. Eris and Lou are heading out on an errand, but naturally, Lou cannot resist making a dramatic production out of traveling together like a regular married couple. Eris remains entirely unimpressed by his romantic subtext, treating his theatrical sigh with the deep, professional exhaustion of a retail worker on a double shift. Before they depart, Eris receives a secret note packed with urgent warnings, only for Lou to casually hijack the conversation and complain that she is paying him too much attention. He practically pouts about wanting her undivided focus, completely oblivious to the fact that Eris is trying very hard to ignore his entire existence. Once they arrive at their destination, Eris promptly locks herself away in a private room to handle some personal business, leaving Lou outside with a ticking clock. She pulls out her wedding ring, wondering if she should finally hurl the blasted thing into the sun just to stop the daily annoyance. Unfortunately, peace is never on the schedule. A group of shady ruffians bursts in, thinking an unattended maid makes for easy pickings and a quick profit. Eris's quiet afternoon meditation is violently interrupted by amateur thugs who have severely miscalculated their life choices. The leader tries to sneak up from behind, brandishing a blade with thoroughly misplaced confidence. Eris does not even bother standing up from her chair, simply letting out a long, suffering sigh as her reflexes take over to handle the trash. In the blink of an eye, the entire room of thugs is flattened into a groaning pile on the floor. Eris looks down at them with mild irritation, scolding them for making a mess of her floor right after she just finished sweeping. Dragged outside for a quick interrogation, the bruised and battered goons quickly spill every detail about who hired them. Eris towers over them with a terrifyingly blank expression, applying a bit of rough persuasion to ensure they do not leave out any names. With the interrogation wrapped up in record time, Eris hands down her new administrative policy. The defeated thugs are officially adopted as her loyal subordinates. They instantly salute their terrifying new big sister, weeping tears of pure survival instinct. Lou wanders back into the scene, looking remarkably pleased with himself and dropping casual hints about his romantic feelings. Eris responds by giving him a blank stare, wondering how someone so powerful can act so persistently ridiculous. As they walk back together, Lou cheerfully remarks on how much fun it is to keep checking up on her. Eris feels a creeping suspicion that her entire life is one giant, poorly scripted comedy sketch designed purely to test her legendary patience. Sitting down for a brief rest, Lou continues his relentless teasing while Eris silently contemplates the sheer exhaustion of managing him. She warns him that his dramatic antics are going to get him hurt, though the threat lacks any real bite. Eris and Lenya find themselves traveling together, and Lenya wastes no time trying to figure out why he cares so much about her. He treats her with an absurd level of devotion, and she is frankly baffled as to why he is dwelling on it. Lenya leans right into the intensity, claiming she is the single most special person in his entire life. Eris gives him a deadpan look, wondering if the man is just naturally inclined toward theatrical romance. Lenya keeps right on talking about how he dragged himself through hell just to meet her. Eris remains completely unimpressed by the grand poetic gestures, treating it like a standard Tuesday conversation. She gently reminds him that they are strictly colleagues, keeping professional boundaries firmly in place. Lenya accepts the arrangement with a sigh, though he clearly wishes things were different. Lenya looks genuinely touched by her definition of camaraderie, while Eris just feels a tear coming to her eye from sheer exhaustion. This guy is genuinely impossible to figure out. Before she knows it, Eris finds herself nodding off and waking up mid-journey with a terrible grogginess. She notes that falling asleep around Lenya has somehow become a regular occurrence. She starts to suspect that Lenya might actually be secretly casting sleep magic on her. It is either that or she just feels unusually safe around him, which is a terrifying thought on its own. They finally arrive at their destination, and the local gatekeeper is practically floored by their sudden appearance. Eris and Lenya step through the gates, ready to inspect the Weatherwood estate. The poor gatekeeper takes one look at Lenya's striking features and promptly loses consciousness out of sheer shock. Eris looks down at the fallen guard, wondering if everyone in this region is prone to fainting. They move further into the grounds, observing the rather run-down state of the manor. It seems the Weatherwoods have been keeping a low profile for quite some time now. An elderly servant approaches them, but the moment he catches sight of Lenya, his eyes nearly pop out of his head. He gasps in absolute terror at the stunning beauty standing before him. Panic sets in as the old man loses his balance and goes tumbling backward in a blind panic. Eris has to move fast to keep things from getting completely out of hand. Eris swoops in to catch the falling man, urgently whispering instructions not to finish him off. After all, he is the old man who actually pays their wages, so keeping him conscious is a priority. Lenya calmly observes the chaos, noting that anyone from the Logway Empire should recognize his face instantly. The locals are not just spooked, they are dealing with the terrifying remnants of Mephisto. Life at Weatherwood Manor continues its peaceful rhythm, which basically means an elderly man is currently sleeping off a dramatic awakening while Eris pours tea. The local visitors are settling in, completely unaware that their quiet estate host is hiding an astronomical amount of power under that maid's uniform. Flashbacks remind us of the grim aftermath of the Magic War, where dark remnants of Mephisto's army left trails of terror across the realm. Eris reflects on those chaotic days, contrasting them with her current ambition of simply sweeping floors and watering daisies in peace. Lou contemplates his next moves regarding the lingering threats, casually debating whether to eliminate potential targets or send them packing. Eris stands nearby, maintaining her cover as a humble servant while subtly steering her master away from unnecessary bloodshed. Back in the present parlor, the elderly visitor wakes up and immediately starts groveling before Kalepa with theatrical devotion. He begs for forgiveness and praises the teachings of the order, treating the whole room like a sacred temple. Eris watches the over the top display with a mixture of polite detachment and deep internal sighing. When the old man tries to drag her into the conversation, she politely dodges the spotlight, preferring to remain an invisible fixture of the manor. The conversation shifts toward historical relics, specifically the legendary belongings of Lord Dian Kecht. The visitor produces documents and maps, convinced that Weatherwood Manor holds the key to uncovering lost artifacts from the war. Maps are laid out across the table as the guest outlines a rather daring scheme to track down the hidden treasures. He points toward the imperial vaults and secret locations, treating a simple afternoon tea like a grand heist movie. Eris listens to the grand treasure hunting plot with mounting concern, realizing her peaceful housekeeping job is turning into a conspiracy thriller. She notes how quickly everyone is willing to risk their necks for ancient loot. The visitor turns his attention back to Eris, letting slip a few intrusive questions about her relationship with Lou. He wonders aloud if she holds a special position in the household, prompting a swift and defensive denial from the maid. Eris insists with extreme prejudice that she is nothing more than a humble employee, though her visible irritation betrays her calm exterior. Lou watches the exchange with a knowing grin, thoroughly amused by her insistence on professional boundaries. With the misunderstanding finally cleared up, the visitor dramatically collapses backward in sheer exhaustion from his own overthinking. Eris and Lou simply stare at the fallen guest, proving once again that the greatest threat to Weatherwood Manor is whatever bizarre chaos walks through the front door. Life at Weatherwood Manor continues with its usual domestic calm, punctuated entirely by Eris handling mundane chores. Daisy drops by with a letter for her, marveling at how smoothly the senior maid operates. Naturally, Eris treats ironing a tablecloth like an ancient combat discipline. Daisy watches in pure awe as Eris deploys ridiculous amounts of magical intensity just to flatten some fabric. Eris quickly dials it back, pretending it is just a normal technique. Still, Daisy is completely convinced the Weatherwoods possess secret legendary skills. Meanwhile, outside the manor gates, trouble is brewing in the dark. A shadowy group of elite infiltrators has decided that Weatherwood Manor is their next target. They assume an isolated estate with a recluse master will be easy pickings. These are not mere thugs, but top-tier assassins boasting a 100% success rate. They scale the walls under cover of night, completely unaware of what actually lives inside. They genuinely believe they are hunting an old man and a regular maid. One of the intruders creeps into a bedroom, expecting to find a sleeping lord, only to find Eris resting peacefully. The assassin tries to strike swiftly, but Eris wakes up with legendary combat instincts already firing on all cylinders. The poor invader is instantly flattened against the floor before he even blinks. Eris blinks in mild surprise at the unexpected midnight visitor crashing into her room. The assassin tries to regain his composure while staring down an opponent he grossly underestimated. Eris immediately plays the innocent card, insisting she is just a humble maid. When the intruder tries to make a move, Eris delivers a flurry of cartoonish yet devastating punches. She treats the elite assassin like an annoying pest disturbing her beauty sleep. It is a completely one-sided beatdown delivered with deadpan annoyance. The unfortunate intruder is left face down on the rug, thoroughly defeated and regretting every life choice that led him here. Eris casually points out that coming after her was a terrible career move. She demands to know who sent them. Malikos arrives on the scene to find the intruders already handled, wondering why people keep starting fights in their quiet home. Daisy is left crying in shock, trying to process the sheer chaos happening around her master. Eris simply sighs at the endless interruptions to her peaceful life. With the unfortunate guests dealt with, Eris and Malikos prepare to dig into who ordered the hit. The chapter closes as the incompetent assassins are tossed out like trash, leaving the manor ready to return to its peaceful routine.